Assalamu alaikum, everyone, and welcome to part 3 of the interview series. Stanmore Jafferys, New York Union Islanders, Al-Wilayah 2022. We're here with part 3, but I have a very special guest who I've been lucky enough to know for a very long time, since I was young, actually. And I'm happy to have him here. He doesn't need any introduction, but I'm going to give one anyway because I do it for everybody. Some of you may know him as ViFlo. Some of you may know him as the professor, as I like to call him. And some of you may know him as Mutz V, right? That's just how he goes by. But in my opinion, the truest form, and I truly believe this, the truest form of a volleyball savant, Murtaza Virani, salam alaikum, and thank you for joining me today.
Alaikum salam, Salman. It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for inviting me on.
Yeah, for sure. I've always, you and I have talked volleyball for a very long time, but to actually do it in this setting, and I know that we spoke previously, and we couldn't, like I said, we get on the phone or we talk or we meet each other and we're just talking and talking. We don't know where time goes. And this is what it's going to be today, except it's just going to be recorded for everyone to see. We have no time limit. We're going to go on as long as we want, but we're going to talk like, we always talk. And I'm so glad that you're here to talk today, because I know that we just commemorated Fazal's 40th, Marhum Fazal Virani's 40th. And I can't say I know what it feels like to lose a brother, but I do know that he, as you may have seen in previous interviews, and plus obviously the outpouring of support and love that have come from people, that he touched a lot of people's lives, and he truly meant a lot to a whole boatload of people. What has this time obviously been like, and how have you felt with all this love and support coming from the outside?
So I know, Salman, you're a humble guy. I didn't lose a brother myself. We all lost a brother.
Yeah.
Fazal meant a lot to a lot of people, but behind the scenes, he was a very measured guy. The Fazal that you saw commentating on a volleyball game or doing a master of ceremonies, behind closed doors, Fazal was, as I say, very pensive, inspiring. The tragedy of losing a brother, I never thought I would experience it this soon.
Yeah.
My father passed away when I was very young, and he was the youngest of 4 brothers. Fazal and the other 3 of us, we felt like we had another 40 years of just baraza in us,
Yeah.
And to experience so much together, and we did everything together. And the thing that resonates so much with me at the moment is just like on a day-to-day basis how much I miss him.
Yeah.
The odd message here, the odd phone call there, just knowing that he's always there if you want to speak to him.
Yeah,
we can go into this in more detail later as to what he actually meant to me.
Yeah.
But the last 40 odd days, they've not been easy, obviously, as you can imagine, but the support from the community, the thoughts, the messages, the prayers, this is really what's kept us going. And frankly, if you were to ask anybody in our family, we didn't expect to receive this level of, as you mentioned, the outpouring of, ultimately now, it initially started off as commemorating the guy, but now it almost like we're celebrating him.
I know.
And it's meant so much. It's been a tough time.
I'm sure. And that's the thing, did you know that Fazal meant this much to so many people? Did it ever occur to you that?
So I gave a tribute speech at the Stanmore Jafferys' first event after Fazal passed away.
Yeah.
And in that speech, before I gave the speech, I spoke to my brothers on a Zoom call. Mm-hmm. I took my mum aside and I said, listen, I'm going to do this thing. What do you think? And all of us really said the same thing, right? It was a case of, we knew Fazal. We obviously loved him dearly. But much of the stuff that he did, whether it was to do with volleyball, assisting his daughter, setting up a volleyball court here and there, video, these are photos you see after the event, all of the work that he did for the Zahra Trust in really about 4 or 5 years maximum, and how far globally he was able to reach out to the wider. I got calls from people in Pakistan that I don't even know, telling me your brother this and that, and I was like, bro, I don't even know who you are. First of all, I mean, I didn't take the call initially because I didn't recognize the number, right? And they just had so many good things to say. And frankly, Salman, no, I didn't know. We didn't know how much of an impact or how much he touched people's hearts. So it's been very warming. Let's put it this way: he's left quite a high benchmark for the rest of us, right, to try and follow. But at the end of the day, as I say, we need to, the commemoration at some point in time, it will always continue. We will always miss him. He's left a void, but now we need to learn to celebrate him and live in his legacy. And I think, if you'd allow me, that Fazal's not in the recent past the only youth that we've lost in our community that's really hurt me. You'll have heard that Shiraz Nur Muhammad, you'll remember him from Queens. We used to call him Rocky, right?
Rocky.
The guy, you step into the mosque, he's got a big smile on his face and he's ready to welcome you. You rock up to the Queens volleyball court, he's there to welcome you. And, you know, these are characters that we grew up with, Salman, you know, so that one really hurt as well. But again, live and learn.
I've been wanting to touch on Rocky and obviously Shiraz for a long time. And you know that, like you said, he meant so much to us, and he meant so much to a lot of the youth. He meant so much to our volleyball team. He was always at practice. He was always there 100%. He always had all our backs. And I was going to save this for the New York interview, but since we're touching on it, he also, in a way, like Fazal, secretly meant a lot to a lot of people, especially within our community. And I mean, you knew him. He was built like a rock, right? So that's why he was called Rocky. But I remember every time you walk into mosque, like you said, smile on his face, but toughest guy you ever seen in your life. Like, you are not messing with Rocky. And that's why a lot of us felt safe around him. A lot of us felt like, you know, he always had our back. And it was a tough loss to lose Rocky, because I think what you guys felt with losing Fazal, I mean, obviously we all felt that, but you know, someone you saw consistently at mosque, at volleyball, like part of your community, that's what Rocky was to a lot of us. And to see people commemorating him and celebrating him in a way as well, with the Ramzan tournament. Our Ramzan tournament is in his honor. Canada, Toronto's Ramzan tournament is in his honor. So I mean, Rocky, man, you're right. I mean, and I totally forgot that you knew him from your time in New York.
Absolutely, he was there. He was forefront. You know, I just don't know. It's a difficult one, to be honest. Shiraz was an interesting character, man. He wasn't somebody who was outwardly spoken, you know.
Yes.
When you were around him, you shared a cigarette with him. You just felt like, you know, you had a moment with somebody, and it was just intense. And I honestly, I'll be honest, I didn't keep in touch with him after I left New York.
Right.
But whenever I did come back to New York, it was always good to see him, and he was always there at the foot, helping out with the food or helping out with the organization. You guys know this, right? And just selfless individuals, really, at the end of the day.
That's the thing, man. It's just a hard, sucky feeling that we're losing so many young people that meant so much to our community, to the game. And we're lucky enough that this game is what was bringing us all together. I may have not known Fazal if it wasn't for volleyball, or shared anything in common with him. I may have not known Rocky. Obviously, I grew up, but not Rocky was my neighbor, so that's a different scenario. But a lot of us may have not known Rocky if it wasn't for practice at New York, or, you know, seeing him at mosque. And so this game brings us all together, and we're lucky enough to be now, after commemorating these people, celebrating them as well, because they had meant so much to us. I will continue with the interview, and we'll talk more about Fazal, because he had such an impact on your life, especially as a volleyball player. But I do want to, before we continue, disclaimer, I am currently fasting. Murtaza is not. So he may seem way more energetic, way more into it. And if I'm not, I'm sorry, but I'm going to give you 100. I promise I'm going to give you 100.
As we always expect, right? I was
Yours-
going to come with my cup of tea and a beverage,
Thank
but
you.
I thought maybe that's not appropriate, given that your time zone is
Thank
far
you.
behind.
Thanks for that. I got that last time too, so don't worry. Thank you so much for being here, and I'm grateful that you're here, because you are a fellow New Yorker in a way, right? And so we'll go back in time, and we'll go before New York, and we'll start with how you began playing volleyball. Like, what was your true beginning, and when did you truly fall in love with this game?
As we grew up as kids, four boys in the house, you need to occupy your time somehow, right?
Right.
We didn't have iPads, we didn't have smartphones.
Right.
It was Tom and Jerry on the TV, but how many times are you going to watch that stuff?
Exactly. Yeah. It's silent too. Yeah.
Yeah. So you find any mechanism to be able to spend time with each other. And really that was our social circle, right?
Yeah.
So whether it was putting two chairs back to back with a piece of string and a balloon or an airtight ball that you would buy in the petrol station, and it was any sport. It wasn't just volleyball, frankly. You put two chairs together on a table and you create a table tennis table, you know?
Yeah.
But we were lucky in the sense that back in the day where we grew up, we had quite a large garden in the back. And it was like almost like an all-weather sports surface.
Okay.
And we were able to put a volleyball court up, and it was only really when it was my dad. My dad basically was one of the pioneer guys in Stanmore who set up a volleyball court in the Stanmore Mosque car park, like on cement.
Wow.
And we used to go there and play on Saturday nights, but I didn't really play. I was too young, right? So it was mainly my brothers that were playing. My dad taught me how to ride a bike in the car park area behind. And he would just come there and watch us. Sometimes he would serve.
Right.
And that's really where it started, watching these guys. And then slowly you go there a couple of weeks, and then you become the ball boy and you chuck the ball back, and then they see that you can hold the ball and throw it. And then slowly they gave me a spot, like ultra control spot.
Yeah.
Not netty, but the guy who stands at the net and just gets in everybody's way.
Man,
but watching these guys, man, volleyball is not like, as you know, volleyball is not an athletic sport,
right?
But it just exudes charisma in the people that play and the personalities that they bring to the court.
Yes.
And really, that's what really took me, That I played a lot of sports at school. I went to a sporting school, so I played rugby. I played, I played cricket, played football, played field hockey. But volleyball just had a charm, It
does.
And
I think
that's where really I fell in love with the sport.
I think there's a couple of things that make volleyball so different than every other sport that we grow up watching or playing in school or whatever. It's our own. Like, it's our sport. Like, if people come and watch us, people that are playing volleyball at Sport Time, Sport Time in Bethpage, they're playing regular volleyball, right? International, and we're playing this volleyball. They'll stop their games and come watch us and be like, what is this? What are these guys doing with this ball? Why is it moving? Why is it floating? And so I think that number one, it's its own. And number two, you're right. It brings everyone together. So you go to practice with a mixed bag of personalities. And this mixed bag of personalities could give you the greatest time in the world, right? In that 2-hour span, whether you're playing, you're having a bad day, you're having a good day, you're hot, you're cold, you're there with your friends, you're there with your community, you're there with your people. And I think that's what makes this game so much more fun. When we were young, and you remember when I was young, I was coming to Franny Lou there in Queens, and Francis Lewis, we would, like volleyball was like an event, like every Friday, because what would happen is the Knicks were so good back then. So they would have these small TVs, or portable TVs that they would bring. Knicks were in the conference finals, semifinals, and we'd watch Knicks Pacers, Knicks Heat, and all the kids would be wrestling in the other place, and the guys would be playing volleyball here, and there was Mikey and Chico with the young guys, and there was the older guys with Najaf and all those guys. That was volleyball every night for 3 hours on a Friday night.
100%.
Greatest time. The one thing that on a Monday you look forward to is that Friday night with your boys. And I think you're right. I think that's where everyone gets their real true passion from. And we'll touch on passion. We'll touch on passion in a bit, because I want to bring that up. When you started playing volleyball, when was that? How old were you when you started actually playing the game?
So my father passed away in 91. I started doing this control mechanisms right back in the day.
Yeah.
And then they saw that I had agility, because I was pretty light, could move around a little bit.
Yeah, you're a fit dude. Yeah, you're
thanks.
Yeah.
They put me in the net.
Right.
And that was it really. So I played for the first, I'd say 10, 15 years. I played in the net. And I was a netty. Back then it was two touch, right? Net. It wasn't the boost back. It was you got to go direct over, which was a skill in and of itself. There was a netty back then, and he's still obviously around with us. Tasim Uncle Kanji, right? And I used to call him Butterfly, because he would just he was graceful.
Right.
Whether it was a concrete court outside Stanmore or an indoor court where we used to play at Harrow Leisure Centre, I mean, first of all, he was fearless, and he just didn't care what the surface was, but he just made it look really easy. And aspired to look like him. So that's when I first started playing, actually. And then after my dad passed away, I mentioned this in the tribute speech as well. There was a group of I'd say middle-aged guys.
Right.
So Kumail Merali, if you remember him, Zuhair Merali, their dad, and Zay.
Yes.
And then his cousin PK, and then Faz, who plays now, his uncles, his dad Salim, and his uncles Amiro and Moody Fazal.
Right.
These guys basically, they saw, now we've got these 4 boys. They knew us because we used to turn up to volleyball. They knew my dad. Now he's not got, my dad was a good friend of theirs.
Right.
And so they basically, I mean, they were our guardian angels, man. So, you know, 4 kids could get up to a lot of mischief on a Saturday night. 100%. And 100%. These guys took us out of that, brought us onto the volleyball court. And like you said, it became an event. You look forward to this. And it escalated, Salman. Like, the amount of volleyball we played was probably wrong, because we would play on Saturday night, we would play on Sunday. It got to a stage where we would travel to South London to play with Haider. I mean, it wasn't Haideris back then. They used to have 2 teams out there. One was called Comets. The other one was called Jafferys.
Okay.
And we would go there at like at 2 o'clock on a Sunday. I remember Uncle Teja, I forgot his name. He used to come and pick us up in this red van that you used to have, right? And we used to call it Pauni Gadi, which basically means a car that looks like bread, because it looked like, it used to look like a loaf of bread. And it was just a flatbed at the back. He'd drive us to South at like 2 o'clock. We'd play from 2 till 4, take a break from 4 till 6, and then play from 6 till 8, 2 separate matches, and then go back home. So it was nuts, man. It was so much fun.
That is the true memory of volleyball, right? Like you said, like all of us have that in us, right? Where we just like, we have these memories that are built in. And I love hearing these stories, because for us, all of our humble beginnings started like this. You're ultra concho, you're like side net. They don't even want to hit the ball that way. They don't even want to hit if you get the ball, they're like just already like hand on their heads. They know it's not coming out, but you learn from that. It's funny because in today's game, and there's a couple points I want to bring up. In today's game, okay, I don't know how it was. I mean, I'm sure it was the same way. I grew up the same way as you in terms of you start off in the side net, okay? Then you slowly work yourself into half net, then main net. Then if they realize, okay, listen, this kid's not that good in net, but he could probably hit the ball, let's take him out, right? A lot of kids nowadays just like straight. I want to play back. I want to play front. I want to play back center. I want to play short center. It was like you had to earn your stripes back then. It wasn't like you were just going to be put into that position. You don't get it. I remember I didn't touch a third ball, I think. I started playing when I was like 13. I didn't touch a third ball until I was like 18, like 17. I was like 4 years. I didn't touch one third ball. I'd go to 100 million practices and not touch a third ball. And that's because, you know, we just were you had to learn you had to earn your way up. And that's another thing that I liked about back in the day, where we would play under any circumstance. And not that the kids of today don't, because I've seen a lot of parking lot rallies all over the place, especially during the pandemic, a lot of parking lot rallies. But I think that the game back then, there was a passion in a sense that there were no phones, there was no social media, there was no, this was your way out, right? And a lot of parents would be okay with their kids going to volleyball because they knew it was taking them out of something that could have been much worse, right? They're with their friends, they're with adults, they're with people, like you said, guardians, right? Who are going to take care of them. And I like to think that's what we are today too. That's what we do for these youth of our community, that we take them out of situations that maybe, you know, they may fall into, you know, and I'm not saying they will, but I'm just saying that we're there for them for that reason. And I think that's why volleyball's become so much bigger. But that passion of playing on concrete, like think about that for a second. Playing on concrete as a netty, you're falling on concrete. That's true love. That's like true fandom, right? Like, and that's what I miss, man. That's what I love about this game. It's like there's a passion that you have that's like so instilled in you, and I love that. You start playing you know, these people realize that you guys have game, and they start these Saturday night events. At what point does a team actually form and you start going to tournaments locally?
It's interesting you asked that. So Nze Shabir Merali, he had a team. His sons were there, his nephew was there, his cousin was there, and they were from Nairobi. Right. We're from Tanzania, Dar es Salaam. Right. Okay, so already there's a difference in kind of approach to the game. They're like mate guys. We try to think that we're special, so we want to play. Even then, it was still mate, but at the end of the day, still a bit more attacking. Anyway, so 2 teams formed, and remember Uncle Teja took us and the youth, so my brothers, me, myself as their netty. and a few of us, and we sort of had two separate teams. They weren't like they were. Mze's uncle was definitely the 18th. They were stronger back then, 100%. And we were just basically in their shadows.
Right.
And we would just enter these tournaments together. I mean, the kind of tournament, someone you mentioned the concrete floor, man. You know that in the UK, the weather's not great. It's wet, slippery concrete floor.
Yeah.
Okay. And we would go to tournaments to play with Memon teams. I remember we went to one tournament. This was really funny. The back line was not on the floor. The back line was on the back wall. So you like had a license, just go all out. As long as the ball hits below that line on the back wall, it's fair game. And then we slowly started going to these tournaments in Birmingham, Leicester, Haydery, and just participating really. I mean, as a B team or a secondary team, we weren't that successful, but there were players that were emerging. The likes of Fazal was emerging. The likes of my brother Abbas, he was emerging. Interestingly about Abbas, they used to call him Tyson because he had a growth spurt, and he got really stocky. And Mike Tyson was big back then, and he was hitting the ball hard, you know, like he was hitting the ball hard. So he got that sort of reputation. And we were just attending these tournaments, learning new things. We encountered the foul system games where, you know, they would whistle at will. It's almost felt like.
So just help me understand this foul system thing, because I've heard about it obviously for years now.
Yeah.
But if anybody could explain it to me, it would be you. When do they blow this whistle? When they believe the ball is spinning?
Yeah, so when you hit the ball, you have to generate pace on the ball. You cannot let the ball hit you, basically.
Okay.
So if the guy serves like bullet serve, you need to smack that back. And so any guffla shot, any boomla shot, it's over. It's a little bit condescending, frankly. There's a guy standing with a whistle at the net, and he'll blow the whistle, but he'll also tap the pole, and you get a little metal sound, and it was like ding, 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 and you're.
But my question is,
wasn't that bad?
Doesn't that kill rallies?
Yeah, so this is the thing, they're rally. So there's actually a tournament in Leicester, and in Leicester they organize this tournament, and the likes of Leicester, Inayat, Mama Leicester, or you could call Mama as well.
Mama, yeah, heard about
they have like 64 teams, Salman, at the beginning of the weekend.
Okay.
64 teams from around the UK come to play in this foul system tournament, and it's just knockout until you get to what you would call the playoffs, or you know,
playoffs.
And it's like you play a game, you lose that game, you're out. Next, please, and just you're diminishing the teams. You're just knocking people out left, right, and center until you get to the last. Maybe if they have time, the last 8, if not the last 4, and then they'll play a semi and a final, right? But it's all knockout. Yani, there's no round robin, nothing like this. And this, the reason they're able to do that is because the games finish so quickly.
That's the thing. That's the thing. Yeah, they probably finish.
So there's no long rallies. There's none of this. Obviously, there's net usage. But when you see Aki play, for Jafferys, when you play Nick play for Jafferys, these guys are foul system players that have come into our game.
Right.
So when you see the way they stand, front foot forward, hit the net, and I'm going to smack it. That's basically the game.
Is there a lack of defense in this foul system? Is it more strictly off? It's just offensive?
Yeah, it's offensive, but also they become pretty good at defense in the sense of even their defensive shots are pretty intimidating, right? Because they still need to, even if you're digging, you need to generate pace off that ball. Otherwise, you're going to get a whistle. So even their digging looks special. But again, for us, it's a little bit frustrating. And Fazal and I used to watch these games, and he would just sit there and mimic them constantly.
I wouldn't be able to do it. I don't know. Like
one shot wonders, he used to call them. One shot wonders. You know,
I just can't do it. I can't watch a rally that doesn't last more than like at least a minute. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, come on, it's not true volleyball. I find that in our game today, you talked about athleticism. In our game today, we don't lack that anymore. I think that's what has changed, right? I think from the 90s, the 2000s, and then all of a sudden you see the likes of Sammy, the likes of Fazal, Banji. They bring that athleticism, and now you got people like Kizzer, right, who are like athletic freaks, right? Is it the same way with the foul system, where now you get guys like Nick and Akhtar and all these guys who are just jumping consistently? Yeah,
absolutely. So I remember when Sammy hit the scene back in the day. If I'm not mistaken, Sammy was also a netty before he started. And even Faisal Banji was also a netty before he started, and Kizzer also.
Yes.
So these are all agile guys at the net who've learnt their craft basically setting other
again, the
people
same
up.
process, right? We talked about net
Exactly.
and then out, you know?
We went to a tournament in New York. If I'm not mistaken, it was in '94. And you hear rumors, and there wasn't WhatsApp, but somehow the rumors get out. You organize if you want to organize a game back then, it's an SMS scenario.
Exactly. Exactly. A phone call. Yeah, a letter.
We heard rumors. There's a player who's coming from somewhere in the States, and when he spikes like back in the day, the stories, okay, and the I don't know how it's like the
fabrication.
Yeah, it was mad. Some of the stories you heard, like you had the Blast brothers who came from Wanza. They would tell you that these guys ripped the net. Roshi, him and his brother, these guys would rip the net.
Yeah, I love those stories though, right? Like, yeah.
This player would play on gravel and he would leave like all bloody everywhere.
Yeah.
And with Sammy, the story went that Sammy came on the court and he would spike so hard that even after the ball hit the floor, it would hit the ceiling.
Yeah.
But these are the stories that we were told as kids, right? And you're in awe of this. And then you come and watch, even, I forget, I think his name is Sajjad, if I'm not mistaken.
Sajjad Kimji? Yeah.
So Sajjad had this, when we came to New York in '94, Sajjad was playing net center back then.
Yep.
This was the tournament when Marhum RK was there. And we were told that this is the first tournament we've got a player called Shanu, and he's ambidextrous.
Right.
And he can hit left and right. The first ever player to do this. Awesome. But watching Sajjad play, Sajjad had this technique of spiking the ball on the first ball, because spiking third balls obviously wasn't permitted. It was a two-touch tournament. And he would arch his back in a particular way and then just whip at that ball, And you watch this and you think, you know what? Similar to the way that Amir Ali jumps, actually. From that sense, it reminds me of that.
Yes.
It was these stories that would just make.
I think that's what makes the game so good. Again, especially back in the day. I don't mean to hamper on back in the day, but I think again today everything is so accessible. You see videos on YouTube. You see people posting their practices all the time. Back then, it was just hearsay, right? And you would hear, like when I was young, and I just was able, to interview Mehboob Gigi recently, but you hear stories about Mehboob Gigi like just hitting the ball as hard as possible. And it never going out. Like never would go out. You would hear stories like, again, Sammy, right? Like I think for me growing up, and I always say this, but Sammy to me was my favorite player. He was someone I looked up to in the game. I wanted to be like him. Like at that time, we didn't know about Fazal, right? So we grew up watching, like you said, too much swagger, right? The green and white checkered jerseys.
Blonde hair,
long hair,
blonde hair,
and these guys walk through the door, and you can tell like they don't even look Koja. Like they're like, who are you guys? Like they're all like 6'5", right? Yeah. And then you have obviously Marhum Mohirji in the back center who's like 5'10", but 5'8". But you know what? It worked. It just they were so intimidating, and obviously Kostar played a huge part in that because he had built that foundation with Mohirji. But watching like Sammy, man, when I was young, like I was like, dude, I want to be this guy. Watching Sajjad Kimji when I was young, mind you, '97, last time New York won a tournament, Sajjad Kimji, right? He was the front center. He was the MVP. Last time we won a tournament, I was lucky enough to be under the tutelage of Sajjad Kimji when he was in Orlando. All of us, me, KJ, Hilal, we'd all go play with Sajjad Kimji at this place called San Lando, which is a 2-on-2 squash court. And he would teach us the game, right? And we were lucky enough to learn that from him. And I always tell him till today, he's my legend, right? He's my man. He's my mentor. But Sajjad Kimji, if I'm not mistaken, like you said, the stories I heard about him pre me watching him in '97, I was only 6 years old at that time, was that actually third ball was introduced at some point. And when third ball was introduced, he was spiking on the third ball. Yeah. And he won the entire tournament that way. And right after that, people were like, we have to stop this. Just like today, you notice that now there's a line, right? Because now you can't do the whole Z, Akhtar, Nick, right? All these guys, Kizzer, there's a line. So the game.
Full chun, man.
Full chun. Exactly. The game adapts to what was happening. But Sajjad Kimji was one of those people that made the game change. But you're right. You hear these crazy stories of back in the day. And, you were going to these tournaments as a player. What was that like? Like, were you like nervous in a sense, or were you like more in anticipation?
So my brother Fazal, he taught me, this was a line that I would always, whenever I get on the volleyball court, regardless, he would tell me two things. Okay. And because you remember, right, we're talking folklore now. We're creating this is like,
yeah, you're creating
right?
stories.
Okay, so yeah, you're creating memories, you're creating stories, and you want to be somebody.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So I mean, I remember when I was a netty, I used to have a ponytail.
Yeah.
And I used to go, used to grease back.
Yeah.
And you used to wear the short shirt.
It was a swagger. Yeah, it was a swagger.
Exactly. This is what it was about,
Yeah.
But Fazal told me two things. And I say this to the guys when we go and play till today. I went to London. I was in London recently. They kindly let me play a few sessions. And we had a new Mikasa ball. So Khalil came to me and he said, I don't think it was Khalil or Elegance. I don't remember. Mutz, we got a new ball this session. And I told them, remember what I told you. And this is something that Fazal told me. And it was, always talk to the ball before you start the game. And it's just such a dumb thing to say. Right? What are you talking about? Talk to the ball before you go and play? Really?
Yeah.
But it's just this kind of nonsense. And the other line that he would pull out was, Mutz, don't play the player, play the ball.
Yeah.
And that's really what we did.
I actually heard this before. Yeah. He actually said that once in front of me. Yeah.
Imagine, like you said, Kosa, uncle, right?
Yeah.
Not only was he huge, but he had the biggest personality. Right.
Biggest.
Then you've got the likes of Jafferys.
Yes.
There was a player back in the day, and I don't want to swear on camera, but the guy, his nickname was Abbas.
Yeah.
He used to every time after he played a shot. Right? So there was these guys, right? And then it's just crazy. And so you go on the court, if you played the players, you'd already lost before you got on the court.
Yeah.
So what's the point?
Look, I talked about this in my Kumel interview, and I think today, personality is misconstrued for ego, or a lack of being approachable. I think sometimes that is misunderstood for personality. Sammy was probably the most unapproachable guy. He looked that way, at least, right? You'd be like, I don't know, what am I going to talk to Sammy about? Like, he's like, but he's actually one of the nicest dudes. And I was talking about this with Kumail the other day, in that the game today, what makes the game so much fun, and again, this is the same thing back then. Rivalries, personalities, the different types of guys you see on the court, the guys you admire, the guys you want to watch, the guys the way they hit, the way they walk, the way they wear their clothes, the way they, Hasnani Gigi pulls up one pair, one side of his pants, or this guy wears a shirt underneath his shirt, or this guy, he has a headband, or this guy, like slick back ponytail. Those are trends, or the way someone is, or the way someone isn't, the way they are on the court that you try to mimic, right? Growing up, I used to remember when I used to be home, I used to play against my brother the same way. And I used to tell him, all right, who are you? Like, you get to pick one player, I get to pick one player. And I'm Sammy, I'm always Sammy. Who are you? Right? And Safe would be like, my brother Safe would be like, oh, come on, bro. You took the best guy. You know what I'm saying? But that's how it was back then. I think that's what it is now. You like to see rivalries. You like to see personalities. Durab has a personality about him. You like to see that on the court. Otherwise, honestly, the game would be boring, right? Kizzer has a personality about him, right? Mehboob Gigi, Munna Gigi, the Gigi brothers all have personality. Stanmore guys, in the beginning, they lacked, I think, personality, because they were trying to be, all like nice, and, they were like, oh, these guys are good kids. You know what I'm saying? And they're still good kids. Don't get me wrong, but they have a personality. Kumel Kaki brings a personality, right? That's what makes the game so much more fun. And now it's still almost the same way, yet, obviously a little more controlled. You hear about all these young kids that are so good, right? You hear about Khalil Kaki at some point where everyone was like, oh my God, this kid can, float any ball. You hear about Ali Asghar Alou. You hear about Maitham Mehdi. You hear about all these kids, right? And that same way, like you heard about Sammy back then. But that's what makes the game fun. If there was no Kizzer versus Durab, if there was no Durab versus Salman, if there was no, what I'm saying, that wouldn't make the game fun. It'd be boring. It'd be boring. Back then, you were able to watch all these rivalries in a way. When you had, and we'll cut back to New York and what you did there. When you had finished your time in Stanmore, your entire family had moved to Jersey. Is that correct? This is in 99?
Yeah, late 99.
Late 99, right? So from 99 to 2003, when the game was almost changing in New York. Why? 97, we won. 98, 99, a lot of the guys from Islanders had left and moved to Florida, right? And now you're entering a different era. And it was almost the Najaf era in a sense, right? Because he had come back and taken over the team when all the young guys have gone. What was that time like, playing in New York, playing again, under Najaf, playing against the likes of Sammy, Mehboob, Munna, all these guys? What was that like?
So, when you break into a community, and I've been lucky enough to play, as you mentioned, in the East Coast. I played in London. I lived in Birmingham for 6 months. I played there.
Yeah.
You saw me come to a tournament with Haydari.
Yeah.
I played in Dubai, where I am now, and I played in Dar es Salaam as well, right? So I've had my fair share of places where I played. Some people call me a gypsy, but that's just the way it is, right? You just play wherever you go and you break the community, and that's how you break. Volleyball is the language that everybody understands.
Exactly.
So when I first moved to New York, I come on the court and I see this relatively old man, silver hair, comes on the court with a normal shirt on, like a dress shirt, wearing chinos and plimsolls.
Always.
But he has a swag.
Yeah,
and so you just know this guy is something, right? So Najaf uncle would come on the court, he'd take off his shirt, but then chinos stayed and the plimsolls stayed. And I was his netty for about 3 or 4 years while I played. And it was just like on the opposite side, you had the likes of Freddie, you had Shabba Fiti playing, Kazim Jamana was playing. All these guys were there, right? Your dad, we used to play on Fridays with your dad. Like this was something, he was the coolest character, like on the pitch, you know, from a Baraza perspective, him and Bode, right? Let's class one-liners, you know? But yeah, the game was changing a lot. And I remember Mikey and Chiku and those guys took over the youth volleyball. And we were the first people, I think, if I'm not mistaken, that moved to Sports Time, Bethpage. And we held a tournament there. The game was becoming so much faster. 3-touch was coming in. The kids were becoming part of this. But honestly, like New York for me was a bit of a dream in the sense of like, I don't know, man. It just had this. It had this thing going to Astoria after the game for a shawarma, you know, and it was just a really good atmosphere.
I told this to Mehboob Gigi the other day, and I truly believe that this is the case. Toronto possibly today has the best teams in the world, right? Some of the top teams, most of the top teams reside in Toronto. But in my true humble opinion, New York is the mecca of volleyball. If you've noticed, 100%. Most people have started their careers in New York. And
Jafferys were in New York. They were Evening Stars, were they called before Jafferys?
Yes.
In New York.
Yeah.
So just one anecdote about Mehboob uncle, because I have a soft spot for Mehboob Gigi. Okay.
Why is that?
Short, stocky, hits a terribly good third ball. I don't, but he. I remember this '94 tournament. He'd been to Hajj, and he came back. Or it was either that one or the tournament that we had held, the only international tournament before Wilayah that we had in London, which was at this centre called Bricket Wood, and we had Hussein Rai had come to that game tournament, and it was a 2-touch tournament. Hussein Rai, and the story about Hussein Rai was the guy has 2 messed up knees, but he hits the ball from the ground.
Everyone says
right.
Till like this, that was the same story I had heard 4 years ago. Like he told me the same exact story.
So Mehboob uncle came to that tournament, and he was all humble, just finished Hajj, necessarily all good, right? But still at the same time exuding charisma. And I remember that it got to the crunch and they were in the knockouts. And the one thing that he did, and I've seen him do this in 2 tournaments, was that he would wear a Stars and Stripes t-shirt under his main t-shirt.
Right. We talked
and
about
when it came to the crunch, he would pull the t-shirt off. I didn't want to talk of his interview, my apologies, but he would pull that t-shirt off. And then this is now game time.
Exactly.
You know, and just stuff like that, Salman.
I love hearing that. Like that's so good to hear that from your perspective, right?
Yeah.
Like seeing that, like those stories, and it's funny because you had mentioned to me about this whole thing about them being, you know, RK at that time. Obviously, RK, one of the legends in the game, tried to make this an Olympic sport. You know.
Yeah, shooting ball, wrote a book.
Yeah, he wrote a book on this game. So if you talk about truly being a fan, right? Like that is truly loving the game at its core. But he had, you know, it was the news or the I don't know, I guess the I can't find the word, but at that time, I guess, you know, the rumblings and the rumors were that he's bringing somebody who's ambidextrous. And today in this game, there's still not that many people who are ambidextrous. So that is a gift in itself, what Shanu does. But to think that was 94 and we're in 2022, and I'll be honest, up until 2018, 2019, Shanu was dominating this game still. Yeah. And again, one of the few only ambidextrous guys. Yeah. And on top of that, at his age, with his stamina, with his ability, I mean, obviously the guy always kept himself in shape. I think he doesn't get enough credit. I don't think he gets enough credit. I think he doesn't get talked about enough. He's won so many trophies. He's beaten Fazal a couple of times in a final. Like those are things that are very tough to do, but the fact that, you know, back then he was considered like, oh my God, ambidextrous, like that's so cool in my mind. Like that's the coolest thing to hear. Like that,
We've seen him hit the ground, right, in terms of where he came. But the thing about the Arcades team that I really like, the way that they play, is they play like a phalanx. They play like it's like they're dancing together when they play. Everybody knows what they're doing. They move forward together, they move back together, side by side. The other player that you mentioned, Shanu, I think, yeah, 100%, I agree with what you're saying. But one other player was who I felt, he was so humble and modest. He didn't want the limelight, but he was just such a graceful player. Marhum Tagaro, I think, honestly, 100%. Like the ball that he hit was so clean. It was too clean. You know, you could read the Mikasa leave his hands all the way to reach his destination.
We would say the same thing.
It's almost like, you know, like when you watch like anime or cartoons and suddenly this like flame appears out of the ball. This is what Tagaro's ball just felt like watching.
100%.
And he didn't get the credit. I felt I don't know if he did or not, but I wasn't around in Toronto and the States much, but watching him, he always played within himself. You know, just a humble character. He came, did a job, no confrontations, and none. You know, but you must know better, right?
Yeah, no, agreed. The thing about Tagaro, man, and again, we've lost so many like good people in this game, like the good people that are genuine, nice, good-hearted people. We've lost them, and all so recently. But Tagaro is the coolest cat in the gym by far, like 100. By a country mile. The slick back hair's always wet. Have you noticed? He doesn't even play the game. Hair's wet, right? End of the night, hair's wet. See him in the morning, hair's wet. So hair's always wet, slick back, coolest guy, talked to everyone. Like he talked to everyone. It's funny because when I spoke to Shiraz after Tagaro had passed, Shilu, Rocky, he told me that when he had moved to Edmonton initially, that Tagaro was one of the main guys. And mind you, Tagaro is a smiley. He, you know, where is Nashri? He was moving from New York to Edmonton, Shiraz was. And Tagaro was just such a good person to him that he didn't even need to be. I mean, Shiraz wasn't like the greatest volleyball player in the game, and Tagaro was considered one of the best, but yet he found something to connect with, you know, with Shiraz with. Tagaro is such a good guy. You know, we grow up hearing about Sidi, Reblo, Tagaro, right? The top three, right? And I've watched Reblo and I've watched, my favorite is Sidi, just because he had that personality, right? And he had that similar game style in the sense that he was a little bit more athletic than the other two. But you hear about them three and you watch Reblo and Sidi and they have that personality, they have that aura, they have that, you know, and Tagaro is almost like Imran Walji, right? In a way, very clean, very quiet.
Approach shot, you know, like 3-4 steps into the ball. I was going to mention this when you mentioned style earlier. And one of the guys who stands out for me right now in the game is Imran Raji, because I met him in Hajj recently and we had a chat about this.
Oh, wow. No way.
Yeah, we were in Minna together, and of all the places to be talking volleyball, we're in Minna, in Ihram. Why not?
Why not? Why not?
Yeah. So I just love the fact that he jumps, but he has an approach to the ball and he has an approach shot. It's a walking shot, you know? And Tagaro had the same thing.
Exactly.
And it just looks so good, the timing. And the way they do it, it's just a pleasure.
It was like, and that's the thing, right? Like you have personalities in the game that you root for, you admire. Then there's guys that almost not lack personality, but they just don't show it on the court. They keep everything inside. Imran Walji is the same way. He's a gamer, man. He's competitive. He never wants to lose, but he won't show it. He won't show he's nervous. He won't show he's hyped. He won't show he's excited. He won't show that he's angry. He will just be the same guy from game 1 to game 3. And that was Tagaro. Tagaro, I'll be honest, my one story about Tagaro, because I don't know if we'll get to touch on him. I'm sure we will in future interviews. I had never met Tagaro in my life. I was a huge fan of his. I was like starstruck when I saw him. Arcade tournament. He was playing for this team called Kitchener. They needed some players, so they called Tagaro to come play for them. This team wasn't that good. I mean, they had really like weak guys, older guys, right? Like, and Tagaro was almost kind of like, just like, yeah, these are my friends. I'll come play with them. In an arcade tournaments were considered the hardest tournaments in the States from the 2000s, 10s onwards. And he came with his Kitchener team, got to the quarters where we played them for the first time.
No way.
I'm sitting here across Tagaro thinking, oh my God, like, you know, I'm just like all over the place, sweating like, wow, this is Tagaro. This is like one of the guys I grew up watching, like hearing about him and Fazal going head to head, him and Sidi going head to head. And again, very cool, the ball, he's hitting the ball from here, like from the side. A lot of us try to hit from over here. And again, so like you said, you can read the Mikasa, so Imran Walji, like read the Mikasa clean, and doesn't seem like he's getting tired. He just seems like he always has the energy. Anyways, we play this game, right? And we're done with the game, and we beat him 2 straight. And we crossed the court, and my first thing is I need to go shake this guy's hand, because this could be one of the few times I get to play him. You know, he's obviously older. He may not continue to play. I don't know. So I'm like, yo, I got to go shake this guy's hand, tell him like, this was an honor. So I go shake his hand, and I'm like, this is an honor. And I'm like, Tagaro, like, his name is Amin, I believe. I was like, Amin, uncle, I don't know if you know who I am. He goes, of course I know who you are. You're Salman. And I was like, whoa, what do you mean? Like, bro, what are you talking about? Like, and he goes, yeah, I've watched your games. I've watched you on YouTube. Like, and to just get that from him, he's like, dude, I really love your game.
Wow.
And he tells me there and then that I know your next game is against your cousin, Turab.
Oh, wow.
He's like, but, Turab has won. You haven't. So I'm rooting for you, right?
Oh, and, so nice.
I was like, thank you, dude. Now, just getting that feeling of hearing that from someone like him, like, it just made me feel so good. And just to know that, and I don't mean to go on a tangent, but I want your take on this. There are gamers and volleyball players that are competitive, and they're gamers, right? Then there are volleyball players like you and I truly believe this, that we're gamers, we're competitive, we want to win, but we truly love the sport even if we're not playing. That we admire the sport. Like, there are guys who play the game to play the game. It's a hobby, they love it, they're athleticism, they like to get out and play and whatnot. We, even if we didn't play, you and I think we can sit there in an entire tournament and just watch every game and be like, wow.
Yeah. So I think the mark of that, honestly, Salman, you see not so much on the court, but you see it off the court. Yeah. And Fazal was one of these guys as well.
Exactly.
I put him in that category. And the mark of these players, Salman, is the guys who turn up early to put the net up. Yes. They'll be there to put the lines down. Yes. They'll be there to bring up the youth. Yes. In every community, alhamdulillah, I've had the chance to be in, whether it was Stanmore Jafferys, where I started off, where it was called Union before. When I came to New York, the crop of players that we brought in, the work that we've done in Dubai, you look at the likes of the youth team in Nairobi, 2017 semi-final, youth team versus Dubai A team. We got spanked by the team that we have brought up. Right. You know what I mean? These kids, we're still playing, but it's that element of molding players and bringing players in that requires a level of altruism. It requires you to be willing to invest time in people so that you can see others flourish. Yeah. Because if people hadn't done that to the likes of yourself and myself, perhaps we'd have never played the game in the way that we have and had the exposure to travel and play in international tournaments. And here I want to mention a couple of people, if you'll allow me to, right? Sure, because these guys really had a print on my game. So in around the early 90s, 1991, my cousin Akil Bimani, called him Akilo. Yeah. He came to London. There was an interview that Hasnain Gigi gave in one tournament, right? And he was asked to name the legends, the 10 players that he thought, you know what, these guys are sick. Yeah. And one of the players that he mentioned was Akilo. And Akilo, he came to my house. He's my cousin. He came to my house recently. He was also very good at table tennis. Right. And he just still has this swag. This is the guy that we all try to emulate. Akilo was the man. And the stories about Akilo are also like folklore. There's stories where Akilo's dad was renowned, Marhum, was renowned for being extremely strict in the house. Right. So he had curfews and times. So but Akilo was in that center, right? And Ramadan tournaments in Dar es Salaam was like a big deal. Yeah. So there was a Ramadan tournament. Akilo's got to the semis. The game got delayed after the mosque program. And the story you hear is a whole group of people from the Jamaat came to the guy's dad's house to ask his permission to release his son to come and play the game. Wow. You know? Wow. And but honestly, Salman, if I wish that there were videos of this guy playing, it was as if it was so graceful, you know, watching him play. Exactly. And the other guy, again, another one of my cousins who played a lot, and he was a back-to-back Supreme Council champion, was Asif Geraj. I don't know if he's played in the Dar es Salaam in a few teams.
I've heard about him. No, yeah, I've definitely heard about him. This guy, watched him play.
He was another amazing player, like a very intelligent player, but was hitting the ball clean, you know. Right. And these were the guys that we were emulating when we were kids. Yeah. And trying to be like, along with the likes of the guys from the West, like, and that opened up a new trajectory for us, right? Exactly. In terms of like Sammy and like Kosa and the GGs and all of these guys, those were from that side. But then there was an element of they play 2-hour rallies.
Exactly.
You know?
It's like a different game.
It's like,
Yeah, it's a different game.
and so you get this from everywhere.
And that's what
this
makes
is what
it.
molds you as a player. And I think that had that charisma not been there, then the game would not have built. And now when we walk on the court in the way that we do, we in the back of our minds perhaps also have an element of that.
Of course,
we want to have a mark on the game, right?
Of course.
Like you said, the way that Sammy hits the ball from almost behind him.
Yes.
One other player who did that was Nadeem.
Yes.
He used to hit the ball almost from behind him, you know? He used to come from his ear, not from above him. And it's just players like this that you just,
and that's
even
the
in
thing,
our own generation. You know?
I love what I've been doing with these interview series, because I think the first few interviews we did, they were on Instagram and they were very like to the point. On like everyone wasn't being like, not everyone was great, but they knew like, okay, fine, this is live, I gotta be proper, and let's get this done. 30-minute time limit, boom, done. These last couple of interviews, like we're admiring people's games, like we're talking about the actual game and what these people have done. I truly believe you're right. All of us have a level of swagger, charisma, personality. That is what makes this game so much fun. I think that in when we talk about, when you said that having that altruism, that feeling of like doing things for everyone to make everyone better, because at the end of the day, the game will flourish. I don't know if you remember, but in 2000, about, I want to say 7, 8, 9, basketball was becoming a real big thing in our community. So what would happen at these tournaments is that they would have half basketball, half volleyball. Volleyball was dying. Volleyball was truly dying because it was just Sammy and it was just Gigi's, and every other team was kind of like, Orlando, New York, we weren't as competitive. They realized then we need to bring the youth in, and they started to make the youth start, the youth of basketball start playing volleyball. I was one of the youth of basketball, and we started to fall in love with this game all over again. And we grew it. And up until this last time in New York, we had the biggest tournament ever in terms of indoor in North American history. And that is something to be proud of at this point. But that's all because of what you said. People like Fazal, who at the end of the day, even though their game maybe wasn't what it was, he was doing it for the future, because tomorrow he could, like you and I, sit down and not play an entire tournament like he almost did in Unity Games. Like he plays, but he doesn't play to like necessarily win a championship. He plays to enjoy himself, win games, but then he'll commentate, he'll MC, he'll watch, right? He'll admire, he'll tell his team, okay, listen, A team. I've seen him. There's actually a funny story. We played Stanmore in Dubai, the one you held in 2019. Right before we had played Stanmore B. We played Stanmore A. That was against Fazal. Me and Fazal going at it, talking smack to each other on the court as usual. We end up beating them 2 straight. And Fazal goes to Amir Ali right after that game. And Amir Ali asks him, and they didn't know that I heard them. I was walking by. Amir Ali asked him, "What do you think about Sal's ball?" Right? And I'm walking by, and I continued walking, but Fazal's sitting there, and from afar I'm watching Fazal, and he's telling him, like, "This is what you need to do. This is what you need to do." Like, that is true, like, love for the game.
It's passion.
It's
passion, and you know what? Fazal took a back seat. He played. I mean, this is what all of us want to do. I have 3 boys. They're growing. They've already started playing volleyball. I want to be on the court with my boys, and that's something that was a dream that Fazal, and we used to talk about this as kids. That one day we're going to grow up and we're going to play with our boys. And Qadim and Asghar Ali now have hit the ground. They had a chance to play with their dad, and he had a chance to play with them. And that's a feeling that not many have, and that's something that they will carry for a very long time. And the pride with which Fazal wore that shirt along with his kids was amazing. But see, Asghar Ali and Qadim were not the only quote unquote kids that Fazal had in the volleyball side. Exactly. Exactly. He and Abbas, if you remember in the last New York tournament, they traveled with the Stanmore A team as their managers.
Yes, as their managers.
Right? So I came from Dubai with a team. So I'm calling Abbas. Abbas, are you going? Yeah, I'm going. Fazal, are you going? Yeah, we're going. Okay, we're gonna have a great time. This, that. Are you guys playing? No. So I'm like, why are you going? And we're going all the way to New York. What are you doing? And Abbas lives in Dubai. This is a 15-hour flight.
Exactly.
Abbas, what are you doing? And he's like, we're just gonna go there to support. And this is just what we do. This is what we do.
It's true.
And as I said, you can just sit there and watch and just enjoy it. And every tournament, and it's because every tournament, Salman has an inventive step. That tournament brought Limbada to our shores. Right? I mean, the tournament before that. And
there's still like hearsay in these tournaments, right? Like you're playing on court 5, something happened on court 1. The game could have been 13-2, but there's going to be an entire new story. You can go, if you start walking from court 5 to court 1, you'll hear 5 different stories. Oh my God, Salman's losing lovely. Oh my God, Salman made a comeback. Oh my God, you know what I'm saying? Like, that's the beauty of this game. It's that.
Do you remember when Jaxie in the New York B team
against Turab,
he took off? Was it Turab?
Yeah, United Stars. Yeah,
and he took him right.
Yeah,
on the second court on the hallowed turf.
Yes. Yes.
And he took him apart.
Yeah.
And for that it became folklore.
That's it. Bieber fever, like this, and that's something that still runs with Jaxie till today. It's been 8 years, 7 years, and till today, it's still people are like, Jaxie beat Stars that day. One game.
It's like the medal that you wear on your shoulder. When you enter the court, you have the stars on your shoulder. Jaxie beat her up right there. Job done.
Any given day, volleyball is that game where you can beat anybody anytime, any place, and that's what makes it fun. I want to go back a little bit to the 90s. Maybe not necessarily the 90s, but you coming back to Stanmore. That was in the 2000s. You come back to Stanmore.
Yeah.
And how does this actual the way of Stanmore Jafferys? How does that begin when you moved back to Stanmore with your brothers?
Yeah, so Fazal moved back to Stanmore a little bit earlier than I.
Okay.
Because he started having children, and so he settled back in the UK.
Right.
When I moved back, I moved in with him for a while, trying to find my feet, XYZ.
Yeah.
And Fazal at the time was the volleyball coordinator.
Right.
So as he did with everything in life, he wore a t-shirt once, the next day it was mine. He wore my shoes once, the next day it was mine. He was volleyball coordinator one day. He called me and said, "Murtaza, I want you to be," and he didn't see, the thing with Fazal was he didn't ask you, he told you.
Yeah.
Okay. And so he was like, "Murtaza, you're gonna be volleyball coordinator, and now I'm gonna be the volleyball captain." So he created a position for himself.
Okay.
Right? You're gonna be the coordinator, I'm gonna be the captain, and this is how we're gonna roll. So fine, okay, let's do this. So from 2002-ish all the way until I moved to Dubai in 2012, which was the last tournament that I helped organize, which was the Mount that the GGs attended for the first time.
Yes, the one we talk about.
You guys were there as well, or no?
No, we were not, but that's the one.
It was a mixed Dubai team.
We talk about them versus Haydari, right? That was a Dubai team, yes. Team in them.
Yeah, exactly. So for 10 years, practically, that was the setup of Stanmore Jafferys volleyball.
Yeah.
And there was another chap, Mehboob Uncle Teja's son, Hussein Teja as well. He was handling the youth circuit. And you know, Salman, you mentioned that volleyball was dying. There were times we'd rock up to Aldenham and there'd be 5 of us or 6 of us. We'd play tape cricket. Fazal would be like so upset.
Yeah.
We play tape cricket for 20 minutes. We go to an Indian restaurant and we just eat and then we go home. And this happened for a time. And we sat down and we said, guys, what do we do to change this?
Yeah.
And from there, alhamdulillah, it grew and it grew. And there were so many Tawsif Kanji, you know, so many people who participated in the growth of volleyball, but somehow we brought the love of the game back.
Yes.
And we ended up with a 3-court scenario, playing twice a week with the youth playing on 1 court.
That's insane.
It's just so amazing to watch, you know. They'd come and watch us on what we call tier 1 court, and we'd be doing our thing, and they would then slowly join us. And really, volleyball proliferated. And we started doing some new things. Like there was one tournament, what we called the Bob tournament, which was best of the best. So you go, you create your own team. You get your own players from within the community. You make your own team. We were giving out netties. So we would give out the netties because netties is difficult to fulfill, but you could turn up with whoever you want. And that was a tournament that we held. And it was really successful. I love that idea. I never even thought about something like that. That's a really good idea. So best of the best, that was called. And so that's how slowly we sort of ingrained it and we did some good stuff. We went to Nairobi for an outdoor tournament.
At any point during the times where you'd go and play 5 or have 6 guys, did you think we're doing this for no reason? Did you ever think about quitting and just closing up shop? Or did you, like, in your mind say, no, we'll get there. We'll get to, 2 teams, 3 teams.
Like I told you, volleyball took us out and enabled us not to be exposed to bad things.
Yes,
that's what I genuinely believe.
Exactly.
And volleyball is an addiction at the end of the day. It's one sport where I'll be honest with you, in Dubai in the recent past, since before COVID, I've not been playing volleyball regularly.
Right.
But given the call up in Stanmore Jafferys to play with the tier 1 team in the last 5 sessions or 6 sessions I was there, there is nothing, Salman, like volleyball.
Nothing like it,
You know,
right?
nothing like it. Nothing like it.
When you are now getting these youth to come back and play, and not come back, but enter this game of volleyball, do you truly at that point see potential in the likes of Amir Ali, Abbas Ali, Kumail? Do you think they're ever going to get to this point that they are today? Did you ever think that?
So as an aside, off the volleyball court even, we used to have a WhatsApp group called Ballers. And that WhatsApp group basically just has the Blues, Kumi, Faz.
Yeah.
And as you can imagine, myself, Fazal, Abbas, and the main guy was Fazal. That group is now, it's a very quiet group.
Right.
But these guys were not just players that we knew or individuals that we knew of, and their passion and their akhlaq and their mannerism on the court. But off the court, this was our clique of friends.
Yeah.
And these are the people that when I go to London, these are the first people I call till now.
Yeah.
And they're the last people who come and drop me to the airport.
Yeah.
So I remember they used to play in this court called Oakington Manor in Wembley.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, they were terrible, but they still kept showing up.
Yeah.
And did I see potential? There was one game, I reminded this of Amir. I stayed with him a few days when I was in London last. And I reminded him of a game at Aldenham where I was playing net center in that game. Fazal was playing behind me. Amir Ali was playing opposite me, net center. And there was another guy, Sajjad Sumar, I think, was behind him. Okay. And I remember that it was a very tense game. And, ultimately my team won. And I went to talk to Amir Ali after, and Amir Ali said to me, Murtaza, I said, yes. He said, I promise you, after this day, I am going to become the best net center in the world.
No way.
And you're going to be proud of me. Yeah. And I reminded him of this. And I genuinely think that he did. But they've all molded in their own ways. Abbas Ali, after the tournament that we came in was there a New York in 2013?
Yes, there was, yeah.
That tournament we came and I played in the team with them.
Yeah.
And after that, and Abbas Ali was playing front right in front of me. And he said to me, and he didn't say to me, but we knew that Abbas Ali was going to break free after that tournament. He had that charisma then.
He did.
Kumail, I've seen Kumail play cricket, and I know his dad personally. He always had that passion, and he always wore his heart on his sleeve. Mutz Blue, we always just said he used to have dulus in his head, because something would always just, there was a lack of equilibrium in his mind, but when he put his mind to it, he could hit a ridiculous ball. So these guys, for me, it's been a pleasure. I don't take any credit whatsoever for what they've been able to do, but for me, it's been a pleasure watching them grow into what they've become, and the manner that they've done it, in the way that they've held themselves, and we till day, we take pride in watching them, and you'll hear it from the stand more till we die, and this is the reason why, because these are our ambassadors now, and to answer your question, you look at their physique, you watch them on the football pitch, they've got talent, they're just brimming with talent. You get the sense that one day
I think it's easy to say that Amir Ali did live up to what he told you could be the best front center in the game today. Yeah,
if not the best, then one of the ones who makes it look the easiest. It's natural.
He is a true front center.
Yeah,
absolutely. And this is up for debate, but he's a true front center. There is Kizzer, who's obviously, insane in what he does, right? Absolutely. But he's not a front center. He's a front center. He's a back center who's playing front center, right? Like that's pretty much. Amir Ali embodies the absolute truth of what a front center is, and that is, I think he's the best in the game, in my opinion. I know I'm going to get a message after this telling me from Amir Ali. When you watch these guys, like you said, I'm sure a sense of pride almost, right? Like in a sense that these are my boys. These are guys I grew up with. These are guys I watched, and I did, I knew they could get to this level, but now that they're here, 2012, 2013, 2014, they start winning MAMT, they start winning these local tournaments, similar to what you guys were doing in the 2000s, right? Winning a bunch of MAMTs, right? Like you guys, rumor has it you have the most MAMT awards in championships in history of volleyball.
Quite possibly. I remember winning a MAMT as a netty and as somebody who played up. I don't really know many people who have done that.
Yeah, probably the first
how many MAMTs we played. It wasn't because it was I was something special. It was just we played so many of these things.
Exactly.
You got to play wherever you wanted,
Yeah, that's true. And now watching these kids actually do the same thing you guys did. And like you said, holding this banner of Stanmore Jafferys high, like getting to a point where they're so competitive that when they come to these international tournaments, they're considered favorites. They're considered potential finalists. What, in that time frame, did you believe at any point that Stanmore Jafferys, and especially after watching them win Al-Wilayah against Jafferys that one year, right?
Yeah.
Did you truly believe like they were going to come here and win it? Like, do you think in your mind, even until today, not believe, but believe moving forward, that they can come here and win a tournament in North America?
I hate to answer a question with a question, Salman, but I think I can with you. You have been to more finals than many people that I know.
Yeah,
and deservedly so.
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
And I'm not trying to, you know me, I'm not trying to mock you.
I know.
I think you've come so close.
I know.
I think you've deserved at least one, if not many.
Yeah, thank you.
But you still go on that court believing that you're going to win one day, right?
True. Yeah.
And so similarly with these guys, I genuinely believe that they will. And I don't think they've peaked. I've just come from playing with them. Yeah. And every time I play with them, I see something new, whether it's a Khalil, whether it's this new boy on the block called Jamal in the net.
Everyone talking about the Jamal guy. I gotta say.
Honestly, like I was playing. I played back center when he was lifting the net.
Yeah.
And there's times when the ball's in the air, and you're almost saying, "Subhanallah, this is ridiculous. I don't know what to do with this ball." And by that time, you've mistimed it and hit the ball in the net. He's awesome. But so what I'm trying to say is that they've still got, and I genuinely think this for the first time in a while, that this A team that will hit the shores when they come to Wilayah this time, it's an open canvas.
Yeah.
There'll be the core players that you expect to see,
right,
but there are some unknowns out there where we'll see something new. And I think that Wilayah will be the favorites.
Yeah.
But then when they come to the next international tournament, they're only going to grow. And the passion and the fire has built over COVID. And they're ready to do something special, and I genuinely think they will. And my brothers Abbas and Fazal are always mocking them, you know. SJVB Mirali and my team, we reached the semis in a New York tournament. We didn't even reach the quarterfinals yet. You know, you guys always going out to these tournaments in Minnesota and all of these different places. You haven't done anything. You haven't hit that. You haven't put yourselves on the map. Yeah. And oftentimes they don't have a comeback, you know. But they'll prove us wrong.
I'm sure of it. Thank you for, telling me that I might have deserved some of those finals. At the end of the day, the better team, I guess, on that day won. But what I can say is that the one thing that, they tell you count your blessings. The blessing is that, number one, I've been able to play in that many finals. And number two is that when someone comes and asks me, how much does it hurt to not have had even one? Yeah. And I said, it hurts. But when I think about counting my blessings, I think that every tournament, like you said, I walk in there with the same motivation I had the year before. Yeah. And every time I tell myself, after this tournament, I'm done. I'm not even I'm done. Like, you obviously hurt, right? Because you lost in the final. What are you going to do? But I come back stronger. I come back more ready. I come back, my mind is ready. The chip on the shoulder is bigger and bigger and bigger. And what I think I have an advantage over every other team that has won is that I haven't won.
Exactly.
That's an advantage.
That, right? Yeah, absolutely.
It's an advantage. And so being under the radar sometimes hurts me because I feel like some people count us out before they count us in. Being considered not a favorite hurts because I think we've proved that we can be, but it also helps tremendously because being an underdog, being hungry, having that chip, that's the greatest feeling in this game. And a lot of people tell me this. After you've won, it's hard to get that same exact hunger for when you haven't won even one in your life.
I'll tell you of when you say being under the radar, there's one story again about Fazal that I want to bring up. There was a tournament, if I'm not mistaken, it was 2011. We went to Peterborough. This was the first time some of the kids had come into the tier one. So there was a team there with Amir Ali, Faz was in that team, Kumi was in that team, right? Fazal was playing back center, I was playing on his right. And so we were the B team. The A team was stacked. My brother Abbas was in that team, flown from Dubai. Kumal Merali, AP, Azim, all these guys, the usual suspects, they're all there. And Dubai had come with a team, with Nadeem in that team also. And in the semi-final, I can't remember how it went down, but the A team lost. If it was not to Leicester, it was somebody else. And we had played our C team, I think, and we had beaten them. So now we're meeting Leicester in the final. We're the B team, right? Doesn't really happen often.
Exactly, yeah.
And I played side by side with Fazal, and this was one of my, I would say, my fondest memory of being on the court with him. And I remember we were playing the first game, we won Jaffa, you know,
Mhm.
and we were just on top of the moon. In the second game, I remember vividly, we're close, like 11-12 or something like this. Fazal turned to me and said, you know, Murtaza, you know, and it's the way that you would, you were just, Murtaza, sukarsu, man.
Yeah.
I was like, so Fazal was a prolific serviceman, right?
Yeah.
He was very,
Yeah. Yeah.
So I said to Fazal, why don't you go serve? I'll just take your spot in back center and we'll see how it goes, you know?
Yeah.
And he did. And I remember he said to me, Mutz, I'm hitting one down the line. That guy over there, man, he's full of mistakes.
Yeah.
And we took a couple of points and we brought it back.
No way.
We actually lost that second game. And Abbas was standing on Fazal's right.
Okay.
And after the second game finished, we were like, oh, so what's going to happen now? We'll play a third game.
Yeah. Yeah.
What's going to happen? And apparently this tournament, the rule was the final was a 2-game aggregate game.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah.
And so they count your points up, and then whoever gets the most points at the end of it went.
Yeah.
And Abbas is jumping up and down, hugging us and whatnot, and like we win the tournament.
Yeah.
But this is what I'm saying about, you know, I watched the first few minutes of the interview you did with Mehboob Uncle, and you said, you know, the illustrious, and he is illustrious. You wouldn't describe me as illustrious. You know, I've played a lot of volleyball, but I've not played in a way that I'm illustrious, right? But I've loved every minute of it. And I still have that same passion, the way you said, after losing in the quarters or the final or the first round or the second round, I'll still come back and I'll still love the game and want to play. And it's just that's what it is. It's the charm of the game.
100%. When you had moved to Dubai in 2013.
Yeah.
Sorry, not 2013. You had moved to Dubai. Yeah.
Yeah, 2013 March. Yeah.
And you had come to New York and played with Stanmore, and then you had come to New York in 2015 and played for Haydari. And then 2018, you played for Dubai. That is a true testament of your passion of this game, right? Like you continue to move along and play. 2018, you guys came with a pretty decent team. Obviously, we played each other in 2015 Haydari quarterfinal, where you guys shocked everyone and beat RKs in the round.
Yeah. Well, to be honest, they had an injury, if I'm not mistaken. So one of the players walked off the court. He was unwell. But nonetheless, we still
won. And then we played each other, and it was fun. And then you come back in 2018 with this Dubai team, again, full of youth, full of, you know, Akil Hemraj, Ali Raza Kimji, and then a bunch of kids, right? And great players. I know, like you said, you haven't played much volleyball, right?
Yeah.
And you're not an old guy. Like you still got it. Like, you know what I'm saying? Do you still feel like that same passion? Like, do you still yearn to potentially one day be a part of a team, whether it's a serviceman, a third line, or extra or whatever, to go and win a tournament?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, it would be a dream. Obviously, I would have rather done it in what I would have called, you know, my heyday and been a major part of a tournament that I could have won. But to even be there to spectate and watch a team to win, you see the likes of Shane even coming to watch Stanmore A play, and it's just because we love the game. At the end of the day, when I moved to Dubai, now that you mention it, there were two different clubs back then, right? There was Jafferys, which is the outdoor team, and there was Unity, I think it's called, and they were the indoor team. And I used to play for both because I just love the game so much. I remember going for my first Jaffrey session. There was sand this deep, and I tried to do a jump shot and almost landed on my face. And it was just like, yo, what's going on? But yeah, 100%. I mean, we tried to do what we did in New York, in London, in Dubai as well. And I think we brought up a crop of players that you'll see, inshallah, very soon. Who are really improved and, you know, playing really, really well. And it's just good to see. I mean, you kind of you're almost vicariously living through these other people.
Yes, exactly.
And enjoying the game. But yeah, of course, I mean, I'd love to win a game and tournament any day of the week. And I played, as I told you, when I went to London just now, and it was the best time that I had. So
I will tell you that Unity Games, you did a great job in hosting that in Dubai while you were there. Obviously, there was a tournament before that, I believe that was indoor and outdoor, if I'm not mistaken.
Never done before.
Never done before. That was a great success. But then also having Unity Games in 2019, where we were able to attend, and we had a great time, and it was a wonderful time. A lot of teams, or New York, Orlando, Jafferys, obviously we all came. Young Muslims, the team from Dar, that was Morogoro, right? They were there. A great final, a great time, and great to watch them go through teams. Like they played us in the quarters, they played Orlando in the semis. How did that tournament feel, hosting all these tournaments in Dubai? Obviously great success, but how did that tournament feel to you with the way it ended? Did you feel like, you know, I know that we talk about this a lot, that tournament Unfortunately, the ending was what it was. But as a whole, probably one of the best tournaments ever held in Dubai. Like one of the best. And we're grateful for it all the time. We talk about it. It was right pre-pandemic. So we're always like, yo, thank God, we went, thank God we went. Unity Games 2019. What was that like for you? And what did that ending hamper you a little bit? Did it make you feel,
I mean, I'd lie if I said it wasn't an anticlimax because of how well the tournament had gone till then. Ali Raza did a super job to attract all of the Western teams, right? Yeah. And then others had done such a great job attracting the teams from Africa.
Yeah.
And we really had set the stage for, after the 2017 indoor-outdoor, which had never been done before, which, trust me, was Akil Hemraj, again, and my sort of little brainchild that we had, that if we have the facilities, why not use them? It was an awesome thing. But and that was the first time actually one of my other brothers, Mujtaba, got involved. And he was in charge of just the fixtures and all of the marshals and all of that to help the thing ticking on. And I remember him telling me, man, your fixtures are ridiculous. They're not going to happen. I said, well, I've done this. It's scientific. To the minute, I know where everyone needs to be.
Yes.
So those tournaments worked like clockwork and they were fun. I won't lie, it wasn't anticlimax. But you know what? I'll tell you what the learning that we need to take from this. Everyone has a strong opinion, okay? And at the end of the day, there's an element of benefit of the doubt that you have to give because it's in the heat of the moment.
Yeah.
And everybody, they wear their heart on their sleeve. And at that moment, anything can happen. And I don't honestly think it's intentional. Everybody has their own characteristics, their own mannerism, their own strategy. Leave that on the court. I mean, because off the court, we're all eating and enjoying ourselves together anyway. Okay. And it's more of a social than it is a sport at the end of the day anyway. So yes, it was a bit of an anticlimax, but to see what UNCUT did in Dubai itself recently by hosting the tournament that he did, it just shows you that he has a true passion for the game.
It does. The pandemic after that took place and it affected the game a little bit, we'd like to think. How do you think people will come out of this tournament? Like, will people be coming in here needing a couple of extra reps? Or do you think they're going to come out with just 2 years of like firepower, like just ready to go?
Like in their hearts, there'll be 2 years of firepower. How that translates into the game is yet to be seen, right? But I think that the pandemic has, if anything, it's shown that the brotherhood in the community. We miss seeing each other. I haven't seen you in a very long time. I miss that. Unfortunately, Fazal won't be there to see the post-pandemic passion that he would have loved to have seen. But there will be others, and we'll celebrate him. I have all of the thanks in the world to Stanmore Jafferys and Shane and the guys and Jabir and whoever for putting this tournament in his memory. You know, we as brothers and as a family are very proud of that because that's something that we hold dear. It's close to our hearts. But I think people are going to come out gung ho. You know, the word we use in our works of life, people are gagging to play.
Yes.
You know, and they want to come out, and it's not about showing what we can do because it's the usual suspects. Exactly. It's about just being on the court, being competitive, rekindling those rivalries, and just doing what we do. And I think people will really, really be looking to do that.
I agree. I am hoping that I'll be seeing you at Al-Wilayah.
I'll be there.
And we are obviously having it in the memory of, again, like you said, Fazal. Unfortunately, he's not there to see what the game would be like after the pandemic. How do you feel about that? Obviously, the fact that it is under Fazal's name, right? That's number one. Is just, that's going to be amazing because we're all going to be playing for him. But what are not only how do you feel about that, but what are your expectations of Stanmore Jafferys this tournament?
In terms of their performance?
Yes.
Yeah, I think they're the favorites.
Oh, fair enough. I think too. Yeah.
It's a home ground advantage. They've been there. They've done it before.
Yeah.
But they'll be tested in all different avenues.
Yeah.
I think there'll be an element of melancholy when we first arrive at the court,
of course,
because it's in the memory of somebody that we've lost who, in your words, was so dear. And there will be that element of that. But I think that will also give them a little bit more, something more to play with if ever they needed it.
Yeah.
And I think all of the Stanmore teams will come together and they will play within that, with that passion. But I think that all of us will celebrate him. We'll have a great time, and we'll do it in the way Fazal would have wanted us to do it. And we will not hold any bars back. We will be there, inshallah, God willing. And it's just going to be a festival of what we've been missing for so many years. You know, as you said, last New York tournament, international tournament, I think biggest tournament ever, amazing success. You guys know exactly what you're doing. You host the best kind of, you know, North American tournaments that I've ever been to.
Thank you.
And similarly in London, I think, you know, Shane and the guys do a superb job.
Yeah.
And it's going to be really something to look forward to. And it's not in memory of a Fazal that's just my brother. As I said from the outset, he was our brother, and he made so many people feel special. Inshallah, we can feel and make his memory special on those days.
For sure, for sure. I'm excited. I can't wait, and inshallah, we'll all be there. We're going to go into rapid fire, and then we'll end the interview. I know we've been going on for a very long time, but we're almost done.
It's just I forgot that we were even recording at one point.
I know,
I was just
yeah.
enjoying catching up with you, you know?
Rapid fire, quick. First thing that comes to your mind: indoor volleyball or outdoor volleyball?
Indoor.
Netty or playing out?
Playing out.
Greatest game you've ever been a part of?
That final that I mentioned just now in Mount, that B team, not because it was again talked about widely, but because it was with my brother, and now I hold that memory so dear.
Greatest game you've ever watched live?
I would say there was the Orlando game against North in the last New York tournament.
Oh yeah, the semifinals.
For me to watch how that game went down was just, it was tremendous. Perhaps for me the best game that I've watched here.
For sure. Best netty to ever play the game?
Oof. Best netty to ever play the game. Wow. You know, I have to go back in time for people who have played 2-touch and 3-touch. Because if I put most of the netties out there right now who did that, they probably wouldn't be able to pull that off, right?
Yeah, fair enough.
So for me, he was my role model. I wouldn't do it justice if I didn't say that, but Steve Uncle Kanji for me, I just think he wasn't, again, not illustrious. Let me tell you. He didn't have a team behind him that could do whatever they could do. And there are other netties, and unfortunately I've forgotten their names, so I can't tell you who they were. But one other guy that comes very close, and again, I'm not very good with names, but the netty that plays for Gigi at the moment.
Adel Molina.
Yeah, I think he's awesome as well, to be honest.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you now. The best netty in today's game.
Yeah, I think for me, watching how he's adapted his game to lift for the front line and also the back line and be able to switch it during the game as well. Your brother, obviously, Saif does that really well as well when he had Z next to him.
Right, yeah.
But I think Adel does it consistently. I have a lot of time for your brother Saif, by the way. And I would be doing a disservice if I didn't mention him. Inshallah, please give him my regards and his best.
I will.
He's a brilliant character.
For sure. Best back center in today's game.
Oh wow. Lombardo, the way he played for North in that tournament, if I can say that he is there.
Yeah.
It was just so graceful, right? He just
graceful.
And he was consistent, no frills.
So graceful that you almost can't even hear him land after he jumps.
Exactly.
Right? It's like
it was the same jump 400 times in one game.
Exactly.
Like it didn't look any different.
Exactly.
But he appreciated it every time. Yeah, for me.
Your favorite player to watch in today's game?
In today's game, who I love to watch the most?
Yeah.
I like to watch you play because I think you have a ball that, and I'm not just saying that as a first person.
You gotta say this.
No, not really. You have a ball, because I've known you since you were, in the proverbial in your nappies. But you have a ball that you hit towards the right wing, and you've hit to me towards the right wing, which I think is a special ball. Yeah. So I really like to watch that. And I also really enjoy watching the other Arcade's brother that we haven't mentioned. And again, my names are not very good.
Abbas
yes, I do like watching Abbas as well. I just think he's so passionate, and the way he comes on the court with his fingers wrapped up.
All wrapped, chopped up.
It's not about how he plays or the ball he hits, but it's just that without a doubt will come on the pitch as the most passionate guy who's ever played. I also, by the way, like watching Turab play as well. I make my kids watch Turab because I think that his jump is so flamboyant. That if you want to try and be like somebody,
it's very flamboyant.
It's a very nice jump to watch,
Yeah, very flamboyant. The GOAT, the greatest of all time in your mind?
Across the ages, I played in a lot of volleyball.
Across all of it.
For me, from an intelligent player, played both indoor, outdoor well, both in the UK and in Dar es Salaam. Unfortunately, he wasn't able to express himself in more East Coast tournaments, it would be my cousin Akilo. I think for me, he will always be the GOAT, and he holds a special place in my heart.
That's fair. And the last but not least, one word to encompass this person here. Fazal Virani.
Passion. And yeah, I'm not going to give you more words because I have so many. I'll never run out of words.
Passion.
But just as a parting note, like I told you at the beginning, he meant to me, he was my elder brother. He stepped into my dad's shoes to raise me as a kid. He made sure that I got every single opportunity to play volleyball, wherever it was, whether it was that we finished at midnight and he would put me to bed, or he took me to international tournaments. He raised me as a child along with my brother Mujtaba. He became my dad, and he was my best friend, my confidant. I loved him dearly, and I will remember him every single day or every single ball that I hit.
Of course.
And I'm grateful that all of you guys have really made an effort to sing his praise, to celebrate him, and you don't need to do that. You don't have to do that. It's something that I genuinely believe that you are good people, that you're doing this. And inshallah, may God reward you for it. May Allah reward you. And
inshallah.
And this next tournament, inshallah, we will come together. Yeah. And we will celebrate his legacy, inshallah.
For sure, man. Inshallah. One Surah Fatiha for Marhum Fazal Virani and all Marhumeen.
There was one rapid fire question that you didn't ask me, and I wish you did, because there's one guy who, again, is very close to my heart. I've not been able to speak to him in person since what happened to Fazal, because we probably both, break out and then end up crying in each other's presence. But the person who brings the most atmosphere to a tournament or a game, and that would have to be my beloved Monty. I miss him so much. And if he's listening, or if he ever watches this, what seems to be a very long interview now, unfortunately, my bad. But and I apologize to everyone who ever watches this thing. But Monty, if you are listening, mate, I want to see you at Wilayah. And I miss him.
Inshallah, he'll be there. Inshallah. I hope he is. Like we talked about it before, Monty is that guy. You need him at every tournament. He's that guy. Thank you, man. Thank you, Mutz. Really, really, truly appreciate this. I had such a good time. I don't even know where time went. And now, an hour and a half of my fast, or 2 hours of my fast is gone.
I was going to say, I hope I've helped that side of it at least.
No, thank you so much, man. It was an honor. It was a privilege. It always is. And I know we can probably go on until I have to break my fast. But
I appreciate it.
Thank you, man.
I'm not the guy that people would probably expect to see on the roster of interviews. Yeah. And I get that. That's okay. Yeah. But I'm glad that you guys invited me. And it's and I told you this just before we joined, and I WhatsApped you about this. And I said, this is what Fazal would have wanted me to do.
Exactly.
And so if I could have brought us back some memories from back in the day and help bring those memories back, then maybe I've done.
That's all that matters. And that's what this is for. This is just for us to talk about our love for this game. And you couldn't have said all those things better. So thank you, man. Thank you. And like I said, like Fazal, this is for Fazal. He would have wanted this. He would have loved this. He would have been like 18 cigarettes in.
He should have been sat here in my place. Let's put it that way. He'd have done a better job, and we both know this.
No doubt.
I'm really looking forward to seeing you, Salman, man.
Thank you, man. Same, brother. Take care.